February 3rd, 2026, 5 a.m. Yesterday, I visited a job I worked at back in the year 2007 up until the year 2010 during college, and I'm not really sure exactly what I was looking to find. It was more so a thing I just did on a whim. And when I got there, I immediately encountered someone that was there almost 20 years ago that was working there during that time when I first was employed. They gave me a free ticket, let me walk around, and I thought, oh, okay, oh goody, I'm in for some of that good old-fashioned nostalgia. But I mean, don't get me wrong, I definitely got the sensation of nostalgia, but with that, the understanding that I utterly wasted the years I spent at that place. I spent maybe 3 or 4 years working at a museum of sorts. I'm not going to mention the exact museum. But I walked around this place yesterday, took in the smells, took note of the things that I remembered, started to remember names and faces that I had long forgotten. And just walking around this place made me realize I only had like a real one spot of joy while I was there, and there was a woman that I was dating at the time. But other than that, it was a pretty terrible job. And I'm not really sure what the lesson is, or rather, I should say I do know what the lesson is. I'm just not really sure how to elaborate it, and that's why I'm making this recording. These people, they work these jobs, these soul-crushing, meaningless jobs, for 20 years plus. They just stay there. And I'm not saying this to flex on them. I'm not some kind of innovative great soul. I'm just a person. I mean, personally, I have my reasonings for leaving that job and then leaving other jobs sequentially up until the point where I am right now as a contractor. But that's just a story for another time, or maybe after I'm done getting to my point. But 20 years in a job that when I worked there for 4 years during some of my formative years was not even really worth the nostalgia, really. I didn't have any real good times there. Yet these people were still there. Naturally, I got into a point where I was kind of conversing. There were two people there that I remember by name, and we started talking about who was there at the time I was there. Um, 5 of them are dead. 5 people who I used to talk to and see every day throughout the time I was in college are gone. They're just flat done. There was a guy who I remember would always smoke cigarettes and drink coffee all day. There was a guy who I thought was, big, a big guy, really big, overweight guy, but at the time we considered him tough. He didn't make it. There was an old guy who used to walk with kind of a sideways kind of gait. One of his arms is always a little bit lower than the other, but he was mean as hell. He used to give me a hard time. He's gone. There's another old guy who was really big. He was just there because he was retired and didn't have anything to do. Gone. And one of the head guys in charge had a stroke. Gone, probably. That's the only one I'm a little questionable about, but, it's been almost 20 years. He was already up there in age when I got there. So what does this mean, nostalgia is overrated. Because it's like there's that stark reality of the way things are today, but then there's also my consideration of the stark reality of the way things were while I was there. And it wasn't that great. Objectively, it wasn't that great, right? We would stand around at our posts, we would rotate. We would stand around at our posts, we would rotate. The museum staff would flirt with each other. Some people would get fired. Some people would just kind of subsist in that environment. People would get jealous. People would go to lunch together. People would make out in movie theater. You know, it was pretty shit. But you know, it was youth that was so wonderful. But youth in a place like that was pretty shit. And I don't think the little money I was making at that time was really worth that experience. But when I look back, I just think, wow, how unprepared for life I was, even in those particular moments. How much better I could have done if I had been properly prepared at the time. And couple that with the education I was getting, which was really half-assed. They steal your time. You know, not even steal it. They have you hand it over. Right? This precious time where you could be learning just about anything. And I know this for a fact because here I am, almost 40, and I've been learning just about anything just by deciding to learn it. I'm in better shape than I was back then, which sounds like a terrible cliche, but it's true. And it's not so much that I just didn't have the potential then, I just didn't have the knowledge of how to build and how to develop myself then like I do now. Imagine if I did. The relationship I had during that time, I had some bright spots in memory where it was nice. Mostly just the sensation of loving someone. But I remember that woman overtly did not love me. She would speak at times about the man who I met the other day to my face because he was older. And she would mention him as if, she would mention me at times as if I had snapped her out of it, which is ridiculous, which is a ridiculous thing for a woman to say to a man that they're currently with. It's like, if you're not satisfied with this one, and you know you like that one, why would you communicate it? But at the time I was young, I didn't know how ridiculous that was. And then I consider the fact that I idealized this relationship to the point where I kept visiting this place. The impressions that people make upon you are what's special. If you keep on holding on to impressions that don't go anywhere, then what are you? In life, if you get something impacted, they say that it's a medical emergency. You know, you get an ingrown hair and it starts to fester. You get an ingrown tooth and it starts to rot. But no one ever says anything about an ingrown life, where your potential, where you're growing, your potential is waning and rotting away. And that's what this felt like, me confronting that. This is a springboard from which I've come from. That was the first job I ever quit. And I still feel good about it to this day. And that's not to flex on the people who are there. You know, that's not it at all. I'm not one of those types of people. Hey, it's like if you can find stability and joy in what you do, stay, by all means, please. But if you got that thing inside you that doesn't allow you to just kind of sit there, then what the hell are you doing? Because for all of us, it's a one-way street. You know, you're going to get there whether you like it or not. And there is, well, hopefully for me, it's not some place I've been sitting for 20 years.